started, it's my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you tonight to Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture. Today, VT International, along with Vivanta Coimbatore, welcomes you to the 7th Annual Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture for the topic, Framework for a Joyous and Purposive Existence. We are gathered here today because of Jethro, an otherwise abled boy who lived in this world for 19 and a half years. This boy, with his physical limitedness, didn't stop his ability to think beyond a normal existence. Because of his altruistic nature, he spent his time focusing on transitioning life of people through his poems. The contribution he made to the society through his poems and his story in documentary has now reached to people not only in India, but its neighboring countries and many other parts of the world. His limitless contributions to the humankind make us to rethink and question ourselves. Are we leading our life purposefully? Are we? It is a question to think in our minds. Hopefully you'll find the answer by end of this lecture. Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture began in 2015, the year of his demise. It's not only to remember him, but to rethink his contributions to the society through his poems and the message he left to the human society. It is that every individual, in spite of their differences or limitations, has to reach our untapped potential to become change agents and thoughtful leaders of the society. For those of you who have been to Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture before, you will know that we hold this lecture once in a year to bring in sense of responsibility towards our own selves and towards the society, and to make our journey in this earth a purposeful one. The Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture aims to enable individuals to draw from the well of potential that is written within them in order to become active, thriving, and contributing members of the society. So let's buckle up. Keep your hearts and mind open to receive the insights and start the journey of rediscovering yourselves. Vivanta Coimbatore has been a partner from the very beginning. They consider it as their opportunity to serve the community around them. And I want to acknowledge their generous hospitality to this lecture and the willingness to work with us in every lecture that we have had. Now, I welcome Mr. Sumanjit Tiwari, General Manager, Vivanta Coimbatore, to start off this program with a welcome address.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is our great pleasure and honor to have you all here on the occasion of 7th Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture. We are deeply grateful to have you all with us today. And your presence signifies the lasting memory and impact of Jethro Daniel life and importance of this occasion. So, on behalf of Dr. Victor and his family and myself, extend warmful greetings to all of you once again, and look forward to hear him throughout this session and learn what Jethro has spoken without unspoken story through poetry, poems, and all those things. So it's an opportunity for us to learn and remember and make a purpose of our life. So let's pay attention today and have a grateful learning, and whatever best we can do, let's thrive towards that. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. I request Mrs. Lata Daniel, Senior Vice President, Finance and Compliance of Vitae International Accounting Services Private Limited and Trustee of Jethro Trust, Coimbatore, to deliver the keynote address to the gathering.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all come here today. As you all know, it's been 8 years since Jethro passed away, and we are having the 7th Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture today. And these lectures, why are we doing it? Is to enable people to reach the untapped capacity that they have, that each one of us have, and draw from the well of potential that lies hidden within us so that we can be change leaders and thought leaders in this society in which we are living today. Vivanta Coimbatore has been with us since the first Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture, which, as you know, was started in 2015. Now, we are not putting him on a high pedestal. We are not adulating him. But we are trying to use his life as an inspiration for all of us. The purpose of this lecture is to lift the lives of all of us, including me, to a higher plane, so that we can draw the hidden potential within us and become contributors to the society in which we live. Now, each of us have a choice of how we can live our lives. Jethro too had a choice of how he would live his life. He had no control over his circumstances. He had no control. He didn't know where he'll be born, when he'll be born, and how will he be born. Whether he'll be a special child or whether he'll be a normal child, he had no idea. And this pretty much reflects the life that we all live, because we are also unaware of the unfolding life that we have, what situations will come our way, what circumstances will come our way. We have no control. But what we have control is our mind, our mindset. That we have a control over. We have the control, and we can be determined to make our life matter. John C. Maxwell, the leadership guru, has said, every person has a longing to be significant. Every person has a longing to be significant, to make contribution, to be a part of something noble and purposeful. To be a part of something noble and purposeful. That is, every person have got that desire deep within them. It's quite easy to get bogged down by all the circumstances that we may have had and try to see how to remain afloat when the storms of life come. Sometimes we are just waiting for the storm to stop or to pass us by. We say that this too shall pass. But the difficult part is swimming against the current, purposefully, so that you can reach the shore. Incidentally, they say if you swim against the current, you maintain your body, you improve your stamina, you build your muscles, and you make yourself stronger. So these are the benefits of swimming against the current. Now, Jethro had a difficult situation. He had a million reasons to say that life is not fair. He could have said that I got the short end of the stick. But what he could control was his mind. And he said in one of his poems, which you all have, the booklet, he said, your mind is the place where battles are fought. You strengthen it with good for you to be a victor, and you fill it with evil for you to be a failure. Jethro did not resign himself to his fate, but he swam against the current, purposefully and even joyfully, to become a contributor. Those of you who know, who have seen Jethro, would always see his smiling face. because he was always happy and joyful. Recently, we were in Ooty, and we came across, you all may be knowing Higginbothams in Ooty, and one title of a book caught my attention. The title of the book said, "Make It Count. An extraordinary 100-year-old man's 9 lessons for living a life to be proud of." The title was very intriguing, and I picked that book up and I read it. The story is about Benjamin Ferencz. He was an American lawyer of Jewish origin. And incidentally, he died this year in April 2023 at the age of 103. His circumstances was not in his control. He was born a Jew, and during the time of Hitler. He migrated to USA when he was 9 months old. He lived in the most criminally infested locality in New York City, known as Hell's Kitchen, which still exists. He was surrounded by people who lived their lives wrongly. He could have easily fallen prey to his surroundings, his circumstances, and his life. But he was focused and determined to make his life purposeful. He wanted to make his life count. So his situation, the same how it was outside, even at home, his parents got divorced and he was torn apart in different directions. And he was a very short man. He was always mocked at during school and in college too. But he focused, he studied, and he went on to Harvard Law School. So his background, his circumstances, or his environment could not have supported him, but he endeavored. He swam against the current. At the back of the book, the Daily Mail, who gave a review of the book, what was written, he said, "Given what he witnessed at the Nazi death camp, the most extraordinary thing about Benjamin may well be his unwavering cheerfulness. His optimism about life and humanity shines through all the pages of the book." And Benjamin Ferencz himself says, "Finding a little bit of joy every day of your life will sustain you. Finding a little bit of joy every day of your life will sustain you. It will be the little bit of fuel added to the hearth that will keep the fire burning." He kept the fire burning to make his life count. He was a renowned human rights lawyer, and he fought for good his whole life. He was an investigator of the Nazi war crimes after World War II, and the chief prosecutor for the United States Army at one of the 12 military trials held by the US authorities at Germany. He and his wife were married for 72 years, and I learned from the book that he had never quarreled with his wife. And those of you who know us would know that I and Daniel have lived together for 32 years, and we haven't quarreled yet in our lives. And his Benjamin Ferencz question every day at dinner table to his children was, "What did you do today for mankind? What did you do today for mankind?" Such was his sense of purpose in his life, which he was keen his family should also have. Now, what caused both these individuals to live such a purposeful and joyous life? One who lived just 19 and a half years, which is Jethro, and the other 103 years, Benjamin Ferencz. Ralph Waldo Emerson has said, "It is not the length of life that matters, but the depth of your life." What matters is how you live your life. What is the quality of your life? The problem with us is we get bogged down and sidetracked by the mundane things of life. We get sidetracked by the various emotional things, baggage of emotions, of sadness, of ego, of hatred, of pride. All these things bog us down and does not allow us to experience the life that we are all meant to live. It's really scary. You're giving away what is precious and trading for the worthless. Our hope and prayer is that this lecture pushes you to give up those worthless things and capture what is precious so that all of us can live a purposive and joyous life. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As you have mentioned in your note, let's take charge of our mindset. It's now the time for us to listen to the lecture of the day. As I mentioned earlier, keep your hearts and mind open to listen to Dr. Daniel Victor, co-founder and managing director of Vitae International Accounting Services Private Limited and founding trustee of Jethro Trusts. He, with his insights from his wide readings, reflections, and experiences, never fails to inspire us. He brings out the hidden potential within the people who he comes across. He is one who wants us to play our part in bringing better change to the community by keeping our basics right. I call upon Dr. Daniel Victor to lead you to the 7th Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture on the topic, Framework for a Joyous and Purposive Existence.
Good evening. It's nice to invest in the community, and so it's just not a recommendation, it's a practice. Because sometimes we think about many nice things that we have to do, we are worried about the world, the condition, etc., etc., etc. But then we are caught in a wrap and we continue to go and are busy, and then you don't find the time for the most important things in life. And so what happens? Neglect obviously contributes to silent destruction. So I'm hoping this evening we set aside our time, and my hope is that each one of our hearts would be stirred, because if we aren't, I wonder how we are going to secure this world and preserve it as a place for continued peaceful existence of mankind. When I think about Jethro, it seems like he is a message to an indifferent generation, or a generation that has become very callous. I've lived long enough, and I know for sure that's quite representative of what truly is typical of most of us. Somehow we have become a product of what we may say the culture that is around. But is there an excuse to be explaining away our straight to the culture that is around, when the conviction is that there is absolute power that we all have, that reside within us, to be counterculture? And so the hope is that I will awaken that side of you which lies dormant, because I think in that is where our hope lies for this and the future generations. You may wonder what I'm talking about. Like everybody of us, Jethro too had his body, his mind, and I believed he had a sense of who he was, his soul, and he also had his spirit alive. When it came to his body, he didn't really have the functionality that you and I have, in that he had use of his limbs. just the way you and I have. So he was at a great disadvantage. When you see human beings, we often are seen as products who have not really have had control over our emotions. We experience losses, we suffer, people cheat us, people speak ill of us, and so on and so forth. And therefore, quite a lot of us have not even learned as to how to really respond instead of reacting. That's how our emotions are so untrained. And sadly, even when we have grown old, there's all signs of us aging, but somewhere deep within we have failed to really lift ourselves in spite of all that which is normal: pain, suffering, loss, accusations, false accusations, whatever may be the pain that you have come through, or anyone can come through for that matter, we have come through, of sudden disclosure by the doctor that Jethro will never be able and just be like a vegetable all through his life. And medical world doesn't have any cure for him. All that you can do as best is to manage him well. Now, this aspect of our emotion, how well we consider is as important for even purposive existence. I've also grown in home, good intentioned parents. We lived around, we've had friends who have had good intentioned parents. But the point is, as you see around, there is a tremendous neglect of some of the things that are most important. And I'm here talking about the sense of ourselves, our emotions, and our own spirit. Of course, we are all masters. We want to be appearing nice, handsome, and beautiful. And so our own orientation, I know of so many small children, they go before the mirror and they're always all the time looking as how they look, and their parents are so happy about their child growing up in that way. I'm not saying anything about it except that I want to set that in perspective before our minds. We, of course, most of us here and all of us, I possibly think, are all highly educated. So that's another realm we want to really be focusing on. But how much have we been concerned about our own selves in the education of ourselves in the matters of what life is? Have we really probed, except that we have followed what has been told, that you need to keep, we do what we are told. We don't stop to think critically about what it is all about, the meaning of your existence. So by saying so, I am saying that the most important aspects of our life lie unattended. And that's a sad state, because if we don't place emphasis on a matter, we don't really attain anything in that, in terms of our capability. So we develop our mind, and often by knowledge, not necessarily by wisdom. And we do all the things that are necessary for the body and its fitness and its appearance. But the other dimension of a human, which is far more superior, which is truly the creative power when it is really magnified and brought to attention, that remains unattended. And that's very sad. Why did I say Jethro is a message? Jethro is a message because in spite of having not much to do with his body, he couldn't do anything. He had to be taken here, he had to be taken there, he had to be helped with everything, literally, for all the 19 and a half years of his life. Could he have lived a purposive existence and a joyous purposive existence? And I'm drawing from his life the framework, from the poems that he has written as his contribution to humanity. Now, body, mind, soul, spirit is an aspect that we need to really regard well, is what we are taught by wise people. But we don't have time for it. We pass our exams, our orientation is to get some money and more money, and on that race we keep running. And we are continuing to constantly only measure ourselves by the materiality of our acquisitions. And then, of course, we are all so sold to our bodies that we are so often still sensual. I can tell you one thing. When you are so lost, you lose clarity for your existence. You may justify your being that way, but the truth about the matter is you lose the clarity of your existence, and you possibly are not even coming close to know who you are and what you were created for, and therefore you end up passing on life just doing the routine and the mundane of existence. And that's pretty sad. Research even tells us that quite a lot of people, not a minority, a majority of people in all parts of the world die empty, having given nothing to the world except like parasites sucking on it. These are the sad statistics. And living in this city, of course, we are partnering with an organization that I greatly respect. The Taj with its founders, the visionaries, the people who didn't think about business from an angle of making money, but being a means for service to humanity. And I'm grateful that they have shown over a century to continue to remain in the limelight and still maintain those practices. With them, I wished, as against multiple options I had, to partner with and encourage them also, saying that let's do something for the community. And that's how you are here. So I'm talking here, bringing in the dimension of the body, mind, soul, spirit. But these are all supported by various researchers that have happened in these days. And one among them is a man, again, a Jewish American by the name of Howard Gardner. He introduced perspectives into humankind which talk about us as people with multiple intelligences. And these multiple intelligences that he talks about are, when together used, obviously determine human performance and its excellence. So you have, obviously, you are familiar with the mind and its IQ, its capacities for logic and reasoning and the mathematics and so on. The body quotient, the physical ability and its excellence is also something that we by nature know. There is an aspect, of course, of our own social abilities. And then again, we have what is called the emotional quotient, which again is a fact that is currently being introduced in many universities and colleges, including in India. But one of his other aspects, the other aspects of his own finding has been also moral intelligence. And then the spiritual intelligence. I'm here wanting you to shift your focus to the moral and the spiritual intelligence, because that is often the neglected part. We don't raise the questions of who I am, why am I here on this earth? Is it only for whatever my parents have told that this is what I should do if you want to really remain in one way successful, or are there other things that you need to be doing? We don't, apart from some prescription, we need to do good, you can't do evil, you can't do wrong, very often by parents who themselves are not following it. So when they don't follow it, you don't see the power that you need. It exerts itself on you that you even think it is necessary to follow it. Because everything is in a way lost out in this culture. So there is nothing so distinct to hold on to with that degree of a sense that this is why I live, this is how I should live under any circumstance, whether A lives this way or B lives that way. There's nothing gripping about our own existence. There is no deep sense of purpose. Everybody says, this is what I am doing. And thankfully, Jethro didn't settle for that. Now you may say that Jethro was in a way constrained to live that existence. And I'm saying no. If he had to prototype the life that he saw in the culture that was around, thankfully not in our home, he would have just simply made himself an object of sympathy and possibly the powerhouse of irritability and frustration. Now, he didn't see life that way. So I tend to tell myself that this guy somehow had a greater insight into the meaning of existence. That is why we still remember him. So I think even while he sat chained to his body all through his lifetime, helpless to the core, because he couldn't do anything, even point his finger to something. So here is this boy thinking deeper. One of the malaise of current generation is we lost often the art of deep, critical, reflective thinking. And therefore we are just following the most, as everybody says, this is what I know, and nothing more. And then we slide into our materialism, we slide into our sensuality. We keep ourselves occupied by it. And very often what happens, we become so settled in these patterns and manners, we give excuses, and we remain there. And that is not good for all of us. We need the emergence of individuals with their true identity, that they are ones that are born with the deep dimensions that I've just mentioned about the body, the mind, and the soul, and the spirit. That they come alive in all their intelligences, including the moral intelligence, and I'll tell you why. But definitely come alive in their own spiritual sense of who they are. Because I personally believe, as Jethro has proven, it's not about our occupation, it's not about the money you earn, it's not about anything that you acquire, it's so much about the life that you live and the life that you give. Caged in his body. Just put yourself in his shoe. We have so much of liberties, and we waste our lifetime. You would have thought that somebody like him couldn't really be anyway anything. But he is the guy who is today presenting himself in this manner, setting for ourselves a framework for our own joyous, purposive existence. So he sits there and he ponders and he thinks about life. He doesn't slide down into a kind of a remorse, grumpy individual. He had all the reasons for it. That means, in other words, I am saying there is a better way of living. Cast aside all that can be really frowned upon and gone past. There is greater hope for you. There is greater hope for mankind if only we tapped into the truth that we have a distinguished identity that we have to reinvent. Where is this relevance of this moral intelligence? Now, if we really want to travel into higher orbits of existence, so Maslow talks about it as the transcendence. So going beyond the pale of what you see, transcend into a realm to where you belong. Like in any journey, if you are making a journey, you have to be focused if you want to reach your destination. You can't be distracted by this and that, even if they are important, because if you have to reach the destination by a certain time, you rather remain focused. I like driving cars fast on the highway. I have to be absolutely focused, because even a nick of a moment, if I turn my eye off just because my beautiful wife is saying something, I may lose my life. And that's life. You are foremost a spiritual being. Just because culture and society talk in another language, we don't have to really settle down for that language if we mean well for ourselves. If we want to really rise to be the kind of people who will make great things in contribution to this world, we need to choose a different lifestyle than what we see commonplace all around us. You may ask me, are you gone crazy? I'd rather be crazy because of the fact of the life that I cherish, which has purpose, it has joy, and has meaningfulness. And it blesses the lives of so many people. It's very easy to be selfish. It's very easy to live by your senses, your bodily appetites, without any restraint. You can whiplash on anyone for whatever they say or whatever they don't say. These are all maybe your freedoms. But then, if you went in that direction, and I hope we will refrain from going in that direction, and if we have gone in that direction, we will recover our own selves and set ourselves in another direction, because I don't want this generation and you people who are within the spheres of my influence to really lose out on the best that you have for your lifetime. Not just for you, but even for your own family. Not just for them, for the ones that are present, but for your posterity. And just then imagine how much of an impact that you will make in the world that is around us. I'm not meaning that I'll become somebody great as Mahatma Gandhi. I'm just saying, wherever you are, do you have something distinctive of a fragrance, which is not the fragrance of the Gucci and whatever, but the fragrance of your soul? When you really ply into your true self of your own sense as a spiritual being and then as a moral being. I can imagine that we are powerless if we don't have the power of distinguishing between right and wrong, and the strength to reject the evil and to choose the good. Because you don't then have an identity. You may have a name, you may have a physical stature, but you don't have an identity that is commensurate with your stature as a human being, just because of the fact you lost what is most important, a sense of you being moral and spiritual, And then the strength of you being a person with the strength to be able to reject consistently what is evil and embrace consistently what is good. That's the framework for a beginning point for our own purposive existence. I'm not saying you don't enjoy this. We guys are all foodies. I see my friend here. You know, we like food. I cook food. That's the other side. I'm not making a statement on that. But I'm wanting my friends and even myself and even my family to really be conscious of this other side which the world is not emphasizing. They settle down almost as comatose. No life, just existence. Is that the life you want? I'm hoping you don't want that life. I wish you don't seek that life. The unfortunate fate of humanity, past and present, is we allow ourselves to be unaroused to our full self and exist on the plane of our senses, sensual, material, on destructive emotions, our pride and our egotistic selves, and abandonment of our moral consciousness and compulsions, and live our lives crippled and spiritually annihilated. That's pretty sad. And my hope and my own prayer is that we all come alive and use this occasion, which, as was said earlier, the hospitality extended by Vivanta and its management and its owners, as well as also the life of Jethro that stands portrayed before you, that you will not at all in any way trivialize it. Who knows, you may or may not get another occasion to revive your spirit. And so this is, I believe, the moment. So I have a poem of Jethro, which you will find in your own book, which he talks about the creation. Over the start, a beautiful world was created by energy produced by God. Unusual things he made on page number 2, like water, skies, animals, fishes, and birds. Picked a man from the dust and woman to give him help. Made he all this one in 1 week and rested on the 7th. And let's respect God for all that he has given. Now, these are Jethro's words. So I don't want to get into a debate of whether we were created or no, or evolved, or whatever. Finally, it matters how we live. It matters how relevant we are, how worthwhile in uplifting human society we are. Let's not get lost in various thoughts of how we were formed. Let's wrestle with ourselves. Let's be men. Let's take up the challenge of existence with meaning and purposiveness. Because in case we don't if we fail to come to grips with it, then we are not living fulfilled lives. We may have money, we may have riches, but I don't think that's an adequate measure of human greatness. Now here, obviously, we have so many things that are so beautifully created, even us. Nature is resplendent with all the glories of creation. And often what ends up happening, we don't even have the time and the inclination, because we are like those rats running into those dark holes constantly for existence. We are thinking we are living in air-conditioned houses, air-conditioned work in air-conditioned offices, drive in air-conditioned cars, and we think we have made it. But it is unfortunate we have not made it because we have not come alive in our moral stature in all our dimensions. Now, one of the beautiful provisions of creation is the availability of the abundance of power from unseen right in your life to obtain greater clarity for your existence, as well as strength for living morally. So we are not alone. There is a collaboration from whole of creation to really be able to see the restoration of man in his fullest stature, as was intended to be. And you may say, balking at what you see is impossible. It's impossible. But again, we thereby omit to see the glory of creation, that we have an abundant source of supply from beyond to give us that clarity of our state, as well as also the strength to live morally. Now, if there isn't an aspect of moral distinctions that we are able to make, we have lost a sense of our identity. And that's not enough. We need also strength to live aright in accordance with that dictate. It's not just knowing, if I were to tell my wife, I love you, it's not enough. Why? Because that is just a sentiment expressed. I need to demonstrate that love to her day in and day out, that it affirms my statement. So no point saying I'm a moral being, I understand right from wrong. No, not good enough, because you are not affirming it by your action. Are we cultivated in that fashion? Are we cultivating our children in that fashion? Are our schools teaching our children this? Are our organizations model moral standards of conduct? They say about the Americans, from the time they got their nation established till about the industrial age and until World War I, the character of and the principles of the people was what mattered. But now it is all about your personality and your techniques and your technology. And so you will find naturally moral weakness grip not just an individual but also a nation. It slides into confusion because there is no clarity. It's nice to be having extreme freedoms to do whatever we want, whenever we want, imagining we are sovereign. Unfortunately, that's not going to take us anywhere. Unless we submit to the sovereignty of our own Creator in submission to what He is really in character. And into that, we have to slide ourselves in and remain in order for ourselves to be protected. So it's not a matter of a recommendation that doesn't come with an equipping. This is what he says. In another poem of his, Jethro says, "Rush me your smallest need, and I will take note of it. Show me your smallest wish, and I will make way for it. Without me, you are not complete, and without me, you are not fulfilled." So I say with clarity, having embraced a way of life that I have, having probed and explored what life is even when I was a teenager, come into a consciousness that this is what it is, And drawing strength, because obviously we are all weak. Won't even be able to hold on to our resolutions, and which we make aplenty during New Year's. So having compacted with the source of power from beyond the unseen, and allowed it to have a preeminence in the way in which the life is conducted, and with distinct clarity to press forward in that direction, my yes is a yes, my no is a no. My dear friend asked me to visit them, and he said, "We'd like you to come over home." And he said, "I leave it at that." And I had by then said, "Yes, I will come." And I know for sure myself, if I had said yes, I will go visit. Character. This character builds a trust. And trust is tremendously needed in our own selves, in our own organizations, in our families. Trust is needed. So I talked about, obviously, the dimensions of our existence, the multifarious intelligences that need to work in us. We have to keep them alive and well nurtured. Correct. Noel is here, he is a transport businessman. He doesn't fill diesel in his car, it can run only for a while. It may be the best car in the nation, but he has to fill the diesel. Are we really recovering our own sense of who we are time and again? Are we reminding ourselves, this is who we are by the company we keep? Are we feeding our own selves and nourishing our bodies with thoughts that are high by reading stuff, viewing stuff that supports that conviction? It's not a pipe dream. It needs to be worked upon. Without gas, of course, he can make a lot of money, but his car won't move and nobody will come and be his customer. So if you really want to shine the way you are being created and walk with a sense of purpose, have a moral distinction, then you have to naturally refuel yourself by so many things that you read. And that's why Jethro has left his poems to us. I'm not saying you only have to thrive on his poems, but because he is a part of us in this community, we are talking about him. And there are so many great people who have inspired and still inspire so many people across the world. So here is a young boy, so aptly saying, don't only stop by appreciating God's greatness, draw from his strength, he is willing to give you that strength. So if you are someone who are walking on the strength of your own self, you naturally will be inadequate. You wouldn't have fulfilled your own capacities. And that's why I have highest regard for the doyens like the Tatas, Jamshedji, and so on. Even very recently, when they had a succession to come in, I know for sure, reading in the papers, how much of a time that they took, and I read very carefully, so much of what they were searching for is a character that represents the family. And those traditions are getting lost, not because of any one of us, of everybody else, but often because of us. We don't want to really regard these things as important, and we shut ourselves, and therefore we remain helpless as well as innocuous. We don't have anything that we can contribute. As if the salt has lost its saltiness, and therefore what would you do with it rather than throw it because it doesn't add any value to the food that you cook. That's the desperateness to which we lead ourselves by our neglect and indifference. So you have the stature, and then you have the source of power. But let's do a reality check. Let's do a reality check because it's very important. Now, how far we are away from that moral state in our own existence is a question, but it requires humility. I'm not saying you need to tell me what you are. But let's at least be fair to ourselves and through our future generations, that we end up seeing where we stand with reference to this framework of our existence. And I think it is necessary. The more you push it, the more you habituate pushing. And you'll never come in terms with who you are. But our life shows very abundantly that we have given the go-by to most things that are most important. Take a simple matter of honesty. We have all our excuses, justify our dishonesty. And Mahatma Gandhi said, you can't be compartmentalized that you are good in one thing and lousy in another thing. You are only one being. So that's compartmentalizing and saying, in the workplace I am honest, in my house I will tell lies. To my boyfriend, yes, I will tell more lies. That I don't have any other friend, you are my darling. Lies. Dual characteristic. Dual characteristic is like alloy, not like pure gold. It's a mixture. And Mahatma Gandhi says, that there is no such existence. You are either on this side or you are on another side. He says in different words, but that's what he means. And therefore we come to that other point of us, that we need to come to grips with our true self. And it requires honesty of admission and humility to own it. These are tough qualities. Now Jethro says in his poem on honesty, he says, see this, what he says. It's a recommendation. You never, it's on the 11th page, you never tell a lie to your father. Now I'm not worried, because these are all possible standards. The world will say, of course, around us, it's not possible. I've heard it from great minds. Not possible. This is not possible. This is idealist. I've heard it from politicians. But believe me, the politicians don't make your grave. Are you allowing Tom, Dick, and Harry to rule your life and destine it? Or you want to be on top of your existence? You make a choice today. Who will lead you? It's your precious life. Not for somebody to take you on a ride for their own interests. They can say anything. Philosophers can say anything. You need to make a choice, because you living this lonely existence in this vast world with billions of people, and you have to reconcile with who you are. They're not going to sit and feed you or give you comfort. You have to really make up your mind about your own self. So he says, Jethro says, you never tell a lie to your father, never tell a lie to your mother, never tell a lie to your teacher, and to your friend too. Then your home will be like heaven. Your school will be like that too, and your friend will then trust you. And in the last two lines, he says that you will be given the destiny that you deserve, essentially, in his own way. So I run an organization of almost 600 professionals, chartered accountants and others. I know how important trust is and how trust can be built by my behavior. Not just once or twice, but all the time. If my colleague has to have faith in me, I have to exemplify a reliability and a competence that they can rely on at all times, not just for a while. I can't be pretensive. It'll crack my personality, it'll crack my business, because they don't have anything to rely upon, to look up to. After all, they come here for work, they may find a better place to go and work, if at all I don't live up to those standards. So maintaining honesty and integrity is so essential for us to have peaceful, joyous existence. And don't ever give up on it. It's my recommendation as well as Jethro's. Because it costs to earn a return. You don't make an investment, you don't obtain anything in return. That's the logic we all know. So if you don't really want to invest in your character and display it in its excellence every moment, in my yardstick, I think people around should see you and be able to recognize this is the kind of person you are. That's only the acid test. You can claim yourself to be so and so and so and so, or the son of so and so and so and so. They measure you by your smell. And if you're fragrant today and you're stinking tomorrow, they know it. They will not say you are fragrant the next day too. And therefore, what I'm trying to draw here is obviously human weakness. For various reasons we lie. Sometimes out of fear, sometimes out of anxiety or whatever. We want to hide ourselves. We can never hide ourselves. We will always be seen. There's no place to hide. Truth, it will always prevail. It will come to light, one day or the other. So you might as well reconcile with that fact and turn your own selves to a commitment for endless honesty in your existence. It's essential if you really want to get the weight of your own self in that preciousness. Nobody is enamored by anything else. Tell you, truly. But striking character, obviously, people are longing for to see. And why not they see it in you? Many have not had the privilege to sit in a lecture like this. Why shouldn't they see you? And they are able to say that this man is someone whom I have never seen in this world. Let's commit ourselves to that degree of existence. Now we also see that sometimes we are kind of making concessions for our own bodily weakness. And one of the things that is a common point of test is man's relationship with woman. So I don't know where Jethro got that sight. Because he always sat in our home. Sometimes he traveled with us. He didn't have such a big exposure to the world. But look at this boy. He is so insightful of the things that continue to cause us peril. That estranges us and moves us away from our own joyous, purposeful ways of existing in life. And what is it? One of it is to do with our own incorrectness in our relationship with members of the opposite sex. He says in this poem, man had woman, but the foxy serpent ripped him of his peace when man disobeyed God. Your youthhood will be filled with happiness when you follow instruction and filled with sadness when you reject it. Sometimes we say it's a youthful failure. I'm saying it's also an adult failure if you're not watchful. There's a reason we all exist the way we exist. It's not for any reason of our abuse or what we have. It's for restrained use and not for abuse. We can't legislate laws that we don't even have heart to follow. Where will the state of society be if that were the case? I'm highlighting this particular poem of his is because it's often a reason for human failure. Stephen Covey in his book, he quotes that 90% of human leaders' failures is because of failure of their character. And I am imagining quite a lot of it would be messing around with a member of the opposite sex. No caution, no precaution. Simply dereliction. You touch fire, it burns. So the truth is, these are areas we have to be naturally cautious, because once you foul it, then you lose a sense of your own clarity of your existence, because of the fact that within you is your own soul, your consciousness, and it has moral capacity. That means you know from right and wrong, right from wrong, but you violate it. It doesn't sit and sleep with you peacefully. It doesn't allow you to sleep peacefully. So having set these couple of areas of our derailment, I'm not touching about all. There's no time for it. And there are many. Honesty and appropriate behavior with members of opposite sex. It then shows, when we analyze ourselves, we have failed. I have failed. And is then that the state to remain? No, we want recovery. We want to regain what we have lost. And therefore, it's better that we are honest and then we are humble to own up where we are and choose to make a fresh beginning. Now, I brought you to a sense of a consciousness of yourself and the marred state often that we are. I encourage that we don't really remain with the marred state, but make a conscious effort by reflection and humility to own up and not stay there, but also choose to move away into a life of richness. That's where the path of joy is. That's the path of purposiveness. Now I am drawing to your attention is how much of a responsibility we have in cultivating us. Right? So Jethro has done a poem which is actually on mending. So there are two things which I speak and then I leave it there. For this day the quota is enough. Madam has already talked about the mind. How truant the mind can be. Because in the same mind comes toxic thought, and in the same mind comes benevolent thought. And therefore, how you have to rein it in is already she mentioned, using one of Jethro's poem. Now, obviously, how do we really secure ourselves and our future generation and the current generation is essentially what Jethro says is, extra effort is needed for good crop to grow, page 5. Planting alone is not sufficient. All of us do know. Weeding, mulching, tilling, and manuring is quite what we do. The rest is left to nature, all for it to do. Soon the crop is yielded when such is quite our way, and so it is with children when we quite mend their ways. I'm not imagining, I'm very fond of cooking, I'm fond of gardening. So in all of these instances, what happens is it's not anything raw that becomes good food. It's just not some seed thrown that becomes a beautiful garden. There's a lot of cultivation. I know it. Painstaking. But it has to be done if you want to have a beautiful garden. And so are we. So if we are a generation that is actually indifferent to the responsibility of ourselves playing an active part in cultivating, in nurturing, then understandably we will have the wild that grows around us. One of the reasons for society to be continuing to disintegrate is the absence of good people playing their parts. But we all say we are so busy. Sometimes it's like a song that they say, we are so busy. So I used to sometimes, when I was much younger, I used to think, when I was living in Bombay, so we are so busy. So as if the hearer is not so busy. These are all excuses. Believe me. As we heard even in English, where there is a will, there is a way. So don't end up actually reducing even your lifetime by your attitude. There is so much that you can do. In fact, I received a comment from one of my colleagues the other day. And he says, after commenting on the tasty halwa that I made for him, the carrot halwa, and he tells me, I still am failing to understand how you do what we do in 48 hours in 24 hours. So there is power for you to awaken, but there is a nurturing that you have to do. Not only within you, but also outside of you. If you are thinking you are occupied, you are earning a living, and if you are failing in your social responsibilities, I'm not too sure whether you can live a fulfilled life and a joyous, purposeful existence. You are living for survival, existence. And that's very, very basic. Even in Maslow's hierarchy, food security is very, very basic. It's nowhere higher in the ladder of human evolution. Self-realization, transcendence. So therefore, the responsibility over another, as much as your own self, as is given in this poem, drawn from Cultivation by Jethro, is a clear guideline for our existence. And we might as well get into that mode also if we want joyous, purposeful existence. Like muscles. You don't train your muscles, obviously your muscles will dwindle. That's a fact of life. So if you don't really make copious investment in the cultivation of our own character, in the character of our children, in the character of the community, if you're not making our investment, if we don't find our time, if we say we are busy, 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 then naturally the outcome is what we generally see. No place to trust. Man grabbing, they are all having relationship with you in order to see what they can get out of you. Not with an eye of giving. And finally, I also switch your attention to the other poem that Jethro has written about the nation and the responsibilities that we have towards the nation. It's no point understanding ourselves. It's no point cleaning up our inside with humility and admission and leaning on strength from above. It's no point recognizing just the evil and remaining at that. We have to make investments in bringing about correction and improvement on others for fulfilled life. And then we also have responsibility towards the nation. And I am seeing that even this is an exercise in nation building, because a nation is its people. So if you don't make an investment in the people that is around you, who are you waiting for, and which generation are you waiting for that you will wait and fulfill your lives? And that's the reason why statistics says many people die empty. Nothing much that they have done except existence. So Jethro says, wonderful is the state of my parenthood, referring here to this nation. Charming is its poise and its grandeur. Without truth and character, how barren do you look? He asks. Poise the way you were never meant to look. Because a nation is a means of upliftment and well-being of every one of its constituents. Not for some, at the exclusion of another. So the potential of a great nation is what has been granted to us by the striving of noble men. And therefore he says, waste no time of yours for refreshing. You take your time, all needed efforts to make. Without you, the state is bound to perish. So our responsibilities lie not just with ourselves discovering our own grandness in the multidimensional character of ourselves. Our responsibilities don't stop with bringing alive a sense of our moral, spiritual intelligences, which are far more important than anything else. It doesn't stop with us knowing that we are far short of what we are meant to be because of the abandonment of this high degree of sensitivity that we ought to have maintained. But we are not without hope, because there is high heaven that is willing to give us the strength for us to understand our state, as well as also the strength to stand on our feet and march forward, irrespective of whoever is on the other side. It is important that we look around and continue to sow the seeds of cultivation that we need to do, because without it, there is no means of getting a good crop. And it doesn't stop there, because we are part of a nation. And the nation, as I said, is a means for the well-being of every one of its constituents. So the responsibility that lies on us as its citizens cannot be fulfilled if we are only caught up with our own profession and our occupation and our own narrow sense of duty. We need to be like men of character who can march out of that zone and take upon ourselves the responsibility of making sure, as Madam read in that earlier story, what is it that you are doing today for your people and for your nation. With that, I bring to close the 7th Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture, thanking God that He given a boy like him to arouse us to our senses, and also to give us the direction and set for us a framework which will give us the bounteous joy of purposive existence. It is now for us to reach out and avail, and may God bless us in that endeavor. And thank you for your kind listening.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking lecture. Hoping that every one of us here will give attention to the aspects that are mostly neglected, which is our moral and emotional intelligence, and start equipping ourselves repeatedly and questioning ourselves who we are, and find out the reason for our existence. And we are not going to give up on it, sir. Now it's time for us to listen to Jethro's song. I request all of you to rise to your feet when the song is played.
The secrets of the ocean are beyond his reach. A sudden chance of meeting with a kind old man. Now a snorkeling set in his hand. I want you all to see the mysteries of the sea. I want your heart to swell, so you live to tell of schools of fish, of every us to look up and all around. If he lends you his snorkeling mask, will you be up for the task? I want you all to see the mysteries of the sea. I want your heart to swell, so you'll live to tell of schools of fish of every kind, all the colors you wish swimming in your mind. I want you to see below the surface of me. Oh, don't judge a book by its cover. Turn the pages to discover the dreams that was in bloom, and God and Him and you. Oh, I want you all to see the mysteries of the sea. Yeah. I want your heart to swell, so you'll live to tell of schools of fish of every kind, all the colors you wish swimming in your mind. I want you to see below the surface of me.
Requesting all of you to take your seats. You might all remember that last year we were live streaming the lecture, but this year we are going to videotape it and we'll put it up on YouTube channel of VT and Jethro Daniel Memorial Lecture. It will be accessible that way to other people who would like to see it with the same quality we have experienced this evening. As we are here at the end of the program, I call upon Ms. Rini Maria, Assistant Manager Banquet, Vivanta Coimbatore, to deliver vote of thanks.
Good evening to all. I'm happy to stand here and offer my thanks on behalf of the Vivanta Coimbatore team. My heartfelt thanks to Mr. Daniel Victor, Managing Director, VT International, for his active participation. Sir, your deep and intellectual way of imparting knowledge has added to the glory of this evening. I would like to thank Mrs. Lata Daniel, who graced the occasion with her motivational insights. I sincerely pass my warm thanks to all the audience for their significant presence today. I thank all my colleagues who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure everything ran smoothly. With that, I would like to conclude by once again thanking everyone involved in making this event a grand success. Thank you.
Thank you all for your participation today. Thank you, sir.